Hi, this is Francis from Easel. Welcome back to the third Carve design tutorial. Today we're going to be covering how to change the cut depth on an object, change the cut path on an object, center the object on the material, and then we're going to kind of move through adding some more elements to our design, which will kind of highlight the things that we're talking about in this video, and then we'll complete the design, and then the last video, part 4, we'll talk through setting up the carve on a machine and what that looks like and kind of how that works. So the first thing we're going to cover here is how to change cut depth. To do that, click on the diamond or click on the object that you have on screen. In this case, I'm going to use the diamond that we have from our last tutorial video. I'll click on that. We can see it selected by the bounding box. And then that menu that pops up to the right here that says shape and cut at the top, we're going to move into the cut tab. You can see that currently the depth for our object is set in between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. There are two ways to adjust the depth for an object. The first is to click on the slider indicator of where the depth is, hold the click down and drag. This will change the depth of the object. You can tell kind of what the depth of the object is in relation to the material by how dark the coloring is of the object. In this case, white is a 0 depth and black is a full depth cutout. For this, we're going to change the cut depth to 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to drag it relatively close, but it's still not quite 1/4 of an inch. It's a little bit over. The other option for changing the depth is clicking into the depth box below the slider, removing all the current information, and then typing out the depth that you want. In this way, it's going to be 1/4 of an inch. Next, we'll talk through how to change the cut path. Similarly, you select your object, go to the cut menu, and then below the depth option is cut path. There are 4 different options for cut path. Clear out a pocket, which will clear out any space in the middle of the design or within the bounds of the design. Cut on shape path, which will cut with the bit on the dimensional lines of the object. So in this case, if it's an 1/8 inch bit, there'll be a 1/16 inch on either side of the line that gets cut as the bit kind of moves around it. So, and it cuts on the line of the object. Cut outside of shape path, where the entire bit is on the outside edge of the object path, and then cut inside shape path, which is where the entire bit is on the inside edge of the shape. And this can kind of change the dimensions of your shape, so you want to make sure that you're using the correct cut path that kind of fits the dimensions that you're thinking about in your design. In this case, I'm going to go to cut on shape path. So here I've changed my shape path so that it's now on cut on shape path. So when it carves out, the center of the bit will be on the line of the object, and there'll be a 1/16 of an inch on either side that gets carved. Now we're going to talk through how to center an object. To do that, again, select your object and click on Edit at the top of the page. There'll be many options. We discussed a few in the last video, but the one we're looking for is right here at the bottom, Center to Material. And this will center our object to the material. And you can do that with multiple objects, though I'll add an object here to kind of demonstrate. If I have 2 objects and I select both of them, and we can do that by Edit, Select All, and then Edit and Center to Material, it won't center each object individually. It will center them as they are kind of in relation to each other. So that's important to keep in mind if you're trying to center things individually or want them to be on the center of the material, then selecting them individually and then clicking Center to Material is the best solution to do that. So again, we'll click on it, Edit, Center to Material. So now the final part of completing our design before we're ready to carve is adding 2 more elements, changing the size of those elements, and then centering them to our changing the size, centering them, and changing the cut path. So we'll do that here very quickly. Again, if you have any questions, we've covered all of these kinds of concepts in earlier videos, and if you haven't seen those, you can go back. They'll be linked in the description below. So I'll start by selecting a circle. I'm going to change the circle dimensions to 3.5 by 3.5, maybe a bit bigger than that. We'll do 4.5. And then I'll change the cut path to cut on shape path, and then we will center it. And then similarly, I'll grab a square. I'll change the dimensions to 5 by 5. We'll change the cut path to cut on shape path, and then we will center it. And here we have our design. This is a design we use in our technical support troubleshooting. It's called the circle, diamond, square test. And what it does, or what it allows us to do, is check the calibration of the machine. So if your y-axis is moving too far, it's really easy to see that in these lines, or the circle won't be complete. It won't be a complete circle. It might look like an oval, something like that. So typically this is what we test when troubleshooting to make sure our machine movement is correct. And in this case, I think it's a really great first carve, and it kind of creates a bunch of concepts. Creating the design kind of touches on a bunch of concepts, but it also is a really great first carve to make sure your machine's moving correctly, and then if it's not, you can kind of recalibrate it. Please join us for the next video where we're going to talk through setting up the carve and the kind of process for that. And certainly, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment in this video and we'll try to respond to them. Have a wonderful day.
To learn more, head over to Easel.com.